Picture this, it's 2012 and you're stuck in the computer lab where your teacher's completely distracted. After the coast's clear, you and your friends gather around your outdated school desktop and start arguing about what game to play. The argument doesn't really matter to you as you boot up a game that catches your eye. Duck Life. Duck Life is among the most famous games of the Flash era, like Fancy Pants Adventure, the Bloom series, and Run. Perhaps a pioneer in the financial literacy series of games, you control a duck that slowly and surely trains day and night to become a world champion to save its farm. Of course, any player would quickly find that the only real appeal of playing the game more than once would be primarily to beat the game as fast as possible, which, of course, would spell the beginning of a long and intriguing speedrunning history. Okay, so normally I would give an introduction about how we're about to dive into the history after introducing the game properly, but... Okay, this is a video on the world record progression, so I'm gonna keep this brief. There is no agreed upon date for Duck Life's initial release. Some sources like the Duck Life fandom wiki cite November 5th, 2007 as a release date, while Cool Math Games has it down as 1999, which I'm fairly sure is based off this old page from the fan-made video games wiki, which is a depressingly stupid source for something like this. Like, the first image you see on the page is a fan-made PS1 cover. Still, the game only came out on Congregate in 2010, despite the dev being active on there since 2008. Considering both the game and the developer's popularity, it doesn't really make sense to delay its release for that long. Hey, at least we can lock in a period between 2007 and 2010 for the release, but that's not a lot of info to go off of. Okay, back on topic since we have not much to talk about actually. Sadly, for the most part, the early 2020s were marked by speedrunning running on an honor system and speedruns being ran on PC rigs that doubled as ticking time bombs, so video footage is ridiculously rare to come by, especially for smaller games like Duck Life. The first run to talk about is Jumpy Love's run of about 2230, run sometime during 2013. Considering that on the website the date and time for this run seem awfully like they were put in as approximations, it's pretty likely this run was simply a vague memory from the early history of the community, added onto the leaderboard once it got put up. The next run to cover was Firekiller XS's 1744 on August 28, 2014, about a year after the first run, and submitted just 5 days after the game was added to speedrun.com. Again, no footage exists, but I was able to reach out to Firekiller and learn more about the run.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would speedrun the game in my school when I was in high school, and I would track it using my phone's stopwatch. I don't quite remember the community because I was primarily just speedrunning it at school when I was bored. That's why there's no video, but I promise you, my runs were legit. But I remember the run just being as fast as possible. I don't think there was in particular strategies or glitches when I played it. I kind of just played it fast, casually, and then uploaded my times online, because I've been speedrunning games off and on over the years. Just check the leaderboards out, and I swear at the time there were maybe 10 runs posted. Now there's over 400, wow. Nah, that was for sure my best, or else I would have uploaded better times. There was no video requirement back then, not sure if there is now, so it wasn't hard.
As they say, running at the time largely consisted of playing the game quickly rather than any unique speedrunning routes or strats, and that's how it stayed for a long time. Also, we can be assured the Firekiller didn't have any other world records they failed to submit. And speaking of missing records, I looked into old videos to see if there were any runs or even playthroughs that skirted past attention, and I couldn't find anything related to Duck Life, aside from...
Hi, my name is Bob, and I approve this message.
this one. The real relic of its time, huh? The first record from after the leaderboard went up was a 1733 by the Glitch64 on May 20th, 2015, which is not up again. Fortunately, one of his older PBs, about 20 minutes, is still up, and looking at it, we can see indeed that there wasn't much of a structured strategy, but rather just a mad dash to max out the swimming and running categories by training, improve stats with skill seeds, slowly yet surely finish the early runs before finishing a gauntlet of all the tournaments to beat the championship. Compared to today, while the basic goalposts are the same, the route itself is much more optimized, as we'll see soon. The next run would come a few days later, a 1610 again by Glitch64, and again with no video. Probably just a more polished run of the new speed game, it was the first time 2 runs were set consecutively. Again, the next run would come pretty quickly, being a 1510 set on July 21st, 2015, but while a video was listed, it's no longer available due to the mass privating of YouTube videos back in July 2021, a fiasco that deserves its own video in its own right. Still, the runner himself, Magic, must have something on him, right? Nope, there is literally next to nothing on this guy. His runs are private, and aside from them, his speedrun.com page is completely empty. There's only like 5 mentions of him on the community Discord, all talking about how good his runs are, and the only real documentation we might have, maybe in this 14-15 that Blue Crystal 004 got just 9 days after his run on July 30th. This run, the first with actual proper video evidence, evidently takes place in a VC with Crystal and 2 other runners.
I just jumped on the island and like bounced super high.
Yeah.
Like on the palm tree.
A very significant jump from the previously seen 20-minute PB, this run features a much more structured approach to the game, focusing on strategically upgrading stats, finishing races, buying skill seeds ad nauseum while minimizing time spent training. Still, it wasn't perfect, and there was some time lost from unpolished training and other nonsense.
Yeah. Dude, I lost a super seed. Threw it out of bounds, I think. Like throwing them at the duck's head.
So, what was the cause for this jump in time, both compared to the previous record and Crystal's previous PB? Simple. An actual route was used. This route, released the exact same day as the run, was written by FroggyFro and outlined exactly what training and races should be done. It goes like this. Grind up to level 42 running, eat the seeds you're given at the start, finish the first 2 running races and get skill seed, do the first flying race of using the fact that you fall down quickly and just run to the end and get some more skill seeds. Grind to level 42 swimming instead, do the second swimming race and get some seeds, get to level 115 in running and do the last lead, get some seeds, get to 115 in swimming, do the first and last race and get some seeds, do the first flying and get some seeds, get flying to 100, do the last flying and get some seeds, and after max out running and swimming, get flying to 150, do all the seeds, on Athlons and championships and call time. Yeah, seeds are insanely important in the run. They level up all skills and energy, so they save time from having to grind. This route was a game changer and would open the doors for more time save, including Froggy's claim time of 14:11 and Magic's 13:36, both coming out mere days after Crystal's run and neither having any video footage, with the only source of Froggy's time being his own guide post on the game's page. With the doors open for major time save, the only thing left to take the record to the next level would be competition, and in just a week, that'd be what happened. On August 7th, Outrageous Josh would submit a 13:34, eclipsing his previous PB of 14:32 from the day prior and just barely inching his way into the world record spot, much to his enjoyment. This wasn't Josh's first swing into the top of the leaderboards either, as he had gotten an 18:52 in the no skill seed category back in July. His dominance, however, would come to an abrupt end just 12 days later when a new player managed to take both his records on the same day. Check John, who up to this point had been a notable name in the leaderboards, managed to yet again inch into the world record spot with a 13:32. Still, he wasn't too happy with his run, noting about 8 seconds worth of time lost, noting that a time in the 13:20s would be the dream. Not to be outdone, Josh would begin trying to hit back at the run, and again, 12 days later, he would bring it down to a 13:31, much to his disappointment. This time we can see his splits on the side, and we can see he lost time in a couple of places, but the most egregious of these was the final championship, which took his run from potentially being a mid 13:2x to just missing the time barrier outright. And for a while, that was it. A heartbreakingly good pace lasted the last second, and for a month, the longest period of silence the game had seen, neither of them did anything. Until October 25th, when Check John did this. The 13:30 barrier had been outright destroyed, with Check John getting a 13:22. What did he have to say? Not much actually, just that it could be improved. Still, he wasn't wrong, and the time save to 13:17 was outright possible, and anything lower than that was probably feasible. But again, nothing happened. This time it wasn't just for a month or 2, or even 3, it was for over a year. But there was a good reason for it, because while any percent wasn't busy, literally everything else was. Firstly, a whole bunch of categories were added, including 100% single activity, a meme category that slowly became a staple for the more serious runners. Remember, SA is SAs, and IL categories for maxing out each individual stat. This time was also marked by the arrival of the glitch versions of many categories, abusing flash functions to tear the game to shreds and beating it in a couple of minutes. All this potential to claim your own record came competition, and new runners such as Eddie Soros, Gabriel Hartman, Woke, Piplup, and Karda was also known as Leary, so just keep that in mind whenever you see the name.
At the time when I started running Duck Life, which was around mid-2016, I was already speedrunning Flash games, mostly Learn to Fly. I guess I would have just seen one of Cheg's runs either on YouTube or on speedrun.com. Random chance seeing one of the runs and thinking that looked interesting, and it was a game I'd played before. What kept me active? I think mostly just an attachment to the games, as well as knowing my times are improvable. It's kind of a cycle. You have high motivation, you play a lot, get trolled by RNG, low motivation, don't play for 3 months, or at least that's how it goes for me. So I kind of just cycled through periods of high activity and low activity, and I think I just enjoy speedrunning the games and the community, and that's what keeps me coming back.
This growing community wasn't just limited to the leaderboards, however. Soon there'd be a Discord server, which would grow to be an active hub of discussion, both serious and lighthearted. Not just that, but community events would pick up, including several races between runners and even a tournament which, despite its claim, was far from the last one. The biggest thing, however, would come just a bit after the start of 2017, as Chuck would make two incredible discoveries, Island Swim Glitch and Tap Seed, which, while not allowed in any percent due to a ban on major glitches, would become integral strategies in the glitch category. This display of progress must have done something, as Chuck would begin to run attempts yet again, and in just 11 days he would finally lower the record by half a second. In his words, after 461 days, the record was lowered by less than 1 second, forever 1322. More specifically, it was by exactly half a second. But this run doesn't really matter, and after getting an inch, we should know that he'd absolutely take a mile. Just 3 days later, Chug would finally break through the 13-2x barrier for 13:17, getting the dream time from all the way back in 2015. Just took a year and a half, no big deal. Still, this run is amazing, especially considering that this was his first run of the day. Again, improvement could still be made, especially looking at his sum of best, which, while finicky, still indicates that there's at least 10 seconds of viable time to be saved. After a performance like that, break would be completely expected, which is what happened with Check John's next record at 13:16 coming in on March 21st, which also had a sum of best of under 13 minutes. Again, not wanting to stick with a small time save, this record would be beaten the next day. More surprising, however, was that the person who got the next record wasn't Check. The very next day, the record would again be lowered, this time by literally less than a tenth of a second by none other than Karda. The record, which was pretty good aside from a really bad free one, also featured a sum of best of 12:47 and would also be beaten by Check John the exact same day with a 13:13. Note that the splits list the category has no flash functions, the name of any percent back then. An unprecedented free world records had been set in 2 days, and Check just had one word to say about it. Boom. Okay, after that initial game of tug of war, the category saw less attention, partially due to all the typical events like exams before summer, but mainly because of the Duck Life Space hype train. Once that subsided, however, the two of them would go at it again, with Carter getting back-to-back records, recording a 13:11 on July 14th, an unrecorded 13:07 and 13:06 the next day, and a 13:04 the day after that. All of which are lost since Twitch doesn't like to play nice, and the runs on the 15th just weren't ever uploaded, though from the descriptions we can tell one key thing: sub 13 was the goal. Just 2 days later, Chegg would be on pace to realize it, and he'd play as hard as he could, but would end up less than a quarter of a second off of record, with him commenting, sub 13 may have won the battle, but I will win the war. Still, they both got into the flow of things, so it must have been bound to come soon, right? That wouldn't be the case, however, and yet again the record stayed dormant, tantalizingly close to the sub 13 minute barrier, until both runners managed to break through the barrier, demolishing their PBs and getting world records of 12:58 for Karda and 12:54 for Check John on the same day, using a new route that I'm not reading out loud. I already learned my lesson the first time. On a tangent though, why do Duck Life runners only get like a dozen records in a day or just stop existing for half the year? It'd be funny, but like the amount of times it's happened so far, anyways, the record now at 12:54 still had time to be saved. Check Johns fittingly noted that now that sub 13 is free, sub 12:45 is the dream, and even boasted a sum of best of 12:29. Make no mistake, however, with this minute barrier down, time save would be hard to come by, and the competition would accelerate extremely. Again, another period of dormancy would soon follow after the sub-13 barrier was broken. But soon, Carter would be back, beckoning in the new year with a 12:53 on the 2nd of January 2018. Again, this run is lost since it was on Twitch, but the description, which reads as follows: this was a really bad run, apart from run 1. Ultimately though, that just proves that running is by far the biggest time saver, unfortunately. Shows that while there was a likely good chunk of time lost, it was made up by a significantly good run 1 section. Just 3 days later on the 5th, Czech would strike back with a 12:51, with a short but fitting description. Oof. Again, while there was significant time loss in the middle of the run, namely run free and flying free, a strong run 1 in championship clinched out the record. Just 2 weeks later, Carter would get the first sub 12:50 with a clean 12:44 run, which he described as still a bad run, but less bad. Like previously, the run had a very strong start and end, especially in regards to the 1-2 section, but the iffy 3-1 and 3-2 lost time. Just 5 days after that record, another second barrier would be demolished with a 12:34, this time surprisingly enough coming from Carter again. Having cleaned up his major mistakes in the middle of the run, he managed to lower his time by 10 seconds flat. While there wasn't any sort of comment on the run, I doubt he'd be upset with this run at all. After demolishing the record, another period of dormancy would follow as the community waited for Checkjohn's response, which of course would take a while considering he'd have to beat his PB by more than 17 seconds in an already very well polished run. While it took a while, that would be just what would happen, with Checkjohn beating his PB by 20 seconds on the 10th of June, getting a record of 12:31, with the main time save coming from a golden flying free in a cleaner championship run. Yet again, he had just one word to describe the run: unexpected.
I did not expect to get that.
To be expected, however, Carter would swing back, again getting an impressive run that clocked in at 12:27 on the 20th, with a new barrier in sight, sub 12:25, having this to say: decent run. Run 2 was utter garbage, but it was overall an okay run. Sub 12:25 will probably need around 30k run 1 with a 15k run 2. Run 2 should be a 1 cycle if you get more than 35k. But again, the amount of optimization of the run meant a new record would require waiting, and it seems apparent that indeed Duck Life may be approaching its final minute barrier, if a time below 12 minutes was even possible. Nearly 4 months later, on October 11th, Checkjohn would get a 12:24, breaking the 12:25 barrier, with his only mistake being, and I quote, not being ballsy enough to enter 3-2 with 83 the first time, which does line up as his early gold split lead was mostly gone due to his cowardice. His last run in the game, it's really fitting that his last words were that it can be approved. Nah, he's not dead by the way, he just got bored. After this run though, seemed like the category itself was dead, while other categories and other Duck Life games indeed saw progress being made, and runners like Sabby2798, Faceless, and Piano Dude 1011 started being active as record contenders. Checkjohn's 12:24 stayed. It stayed and it stayed and it stayed. And then in 2020, due to an event that shall not be named, pretty much everybody was stuck inside, and having been dethroned for over 2 years now, Carter was going to take back his spot as the world record holder. Finally, after countless attempts, he had finally toppled Cheg's run with a 12:17. While I could explain how he'd done so, I'll let his comment explain it. Good run, but still quite a bit of time save possible. Got less running than Cheg in running 1. Started with level 9 swimming, so had slow swim. 2 cycle swimming. Menuing was really good. 1 cycle running 2 basically carried a mediocre running 1, and my swimming was apparently good enough. Finally, after he had broken another second barrier, he could sit back, relax, and deal with the literal millions of people who now had a very strong interest in running the game after Easy Speeds' video on it. After this video, though, activity went from slow and consistent to being a rapid burst of runs, with countless current runners and members of the community being introduced to the game because of it. For all this progress, more unoptimized categories and games slid into the spotlight, but any percent still stood at a 12:17 record. And again, this run would stand for a long time, but when it fell, it crashed. Yet again, after doing the impossible, an impossibly long break was needed. Over a year and 3 months, the same amount of time passed after Chuck John's 1322, the community continued to grow and compete, but little real progress was made for any percent. That was until March of this year, where Carter started to stream his runs, in December actually viewable, with Reggie in the chat as well. During one of these runs, Carter would do this. Finally beating his run by a second, getting a 12:16 on the 27th of March, having this to say. Pretty standard run, to be honest, nothing special. Running 1 was lame, running 2 was average, swimming was good, got enough coins for fast fly but not fast swim. An okay run for record standards. It was apparent that with enough elbow grease, a record would be possible. With Savvy tying the record the next day, with them commenting that the run would have been much more impressive if they got it a couple days prior to make sure the next barrier, a sub 12:10, would be his. Carter got to work.
Yeah, okay. Huh. Wow. How did getting the 1209 feel? Kind of anticlimactic in a sense, because I know the run didn't feel unbeatable in any sense. It wasn't that much of an improvement over any other run I'd done. Like, it was cleaner and running 1 was good, but swimming was bad and running 2 was okay at best, so I guess I was just expecting a sub 12:10 to feel more optimal, I guess. I don't know. I think similar to previous runs, it's just made me focus on how doable a lower time is as compared to how much better it is than any other run, is how I see it, I guess.
It just took 6 days, and Carter will blow both Sabi and himself out of the water with a 12:09, describing it as follows. Pretty good run, mainly due to running 1, though still improvable. Sub 12:10 is sick though, probably the last 10-second barrier that'll be broken for a long time. And that is where the record stands today. Over nearly a decade of optimization, the initial time to beat this game has almost been halved. But what about future records?
Do I think the current world record is beatable? Definitely. There's plenty of time saved left to get. I mean, on paper, it's only 10 seconds, but realistically, you can save time in a lot of different places on world record. Like, running 1 isn't perfect, swimming isn't perfect, running 2 isn't perfect, there are menuing mistakes. Like, it's definitely improvable. It's just a matter of who's going to be the person to grind it out, actually putting in a lot of attempts and getting lucky, really. A sub 12, while possible, I don't know if that's going to happen for quite a while, just because the running you need is unrealistic to expect. In 6 years, I think I've gotten 40k twice, so getting 46k in a run, probably not going to happen, but who knows, maybe someone out there can do it. We'll see what happens.
As Carter said, while optimized, the run isn't perfect, and with enough effort, it could be broken. That's any percent alone, by the way, not to mention the dozens of categories across the games that, with enough effort, you yourself could hold a record for. While sometimes it feels like Duck Life can come to a standstill, the community itself is practically restless. So rest assured, I feel like the record being beaten is a question of when, rather than if. Thank you. Okay. I'm tired as hell right now. Like, I'm exhausted. But I just want to, do an outro, just wrap things up. I want to say a big thank you to Roni for helping with the voices, the Duck Life community as a whole for just being really friendly to talk to and giving me insights into anything I wasn't completely familiar with, and Carta. Seriously, without you, I wouldn't have been able to get 90% of the resources that went into researching this video. And looking over all my notes and everything, I really do appreciate it. So yeah, I'm really happy to have this video out. I think it is the longest video I've ever made. So to have it, complete is awesome. Other than that, no, I don't have much